I won't close the wealth gap for my family or help to close it within our community as an employee. I'll only do that as an entrepreneur. And if I wasn't clear on that before, I am extremely clear on that today. Shayla Herndon-Edmunds, and I am the founder and chief creative officer of Oh My Goodness Wellness Bar. OMG, as we affectionately call it, is a local Winston-Salem based wellness boutique, and we offer a range of services focused on helping our clients manage stress and pain management and manage their overall well-being. So we do that through bodywork services, natural products, and programming. I started making products because my oldest son, Michael, has eczema, and I started to make the body butter, which is our core product, because of his eczema, and I needed something that would protect his skin and give us an alternative to steroid creams. And after some time, family and friends started using the body butter, and everyone was giving me this the nudge that this is good, you should go to market. And I thought, I've got enough to do already. But then I started to do the research and learned that over 10 million people are impacted by eczema. About 10% of them are kids. And then the number one non-food trigger for it is actually stress. And so it made me think about how I could create aromatherapy products and resources for people like me with kids with eczema and managing stress, and really create a product line that would help people to be more thoughtful about what they're putting on their skin, because it's the largest organ and we take for granted that we can absorb toxins through the products we use. So that was part one of the aha. And then the other part was the realization, also through research and talking with my, target audience, that Black women in particular spend about $8 billion on personal care products every year. And the interesting thing is that less than 25% of the products marketed to us are also considered non-toxic. So even though we demonstrate through our spend in personal care alone that we're committed to not only our glow, but our wellness, the market just hasn't responded. So you go to Target and now we've got end caps and part of an aisle. But when you start to drill down into how those products are actually helping us not just maintain our beauty, but also be safe, the numbers just start to dwindle. So part of that kicked in the activist in me and was just like, I want to do this because we have to come up with our own solutions. The market has chosen not to respond to us, but it doesn't mean that I can't get into the market and create solutions. So that was the aha. I started to actually package and let other folks sample the body butter. And, I just started with that product and got feedback, and people kept asking for more things. So we expanded over time. But necessity was the first aha. And then realizing that me and my family weren't the only ones who had that need is what pushed me to make OMG. So that's a little bit of the inspiration. So we wanted to start small and then work our way up. The idea of securing physical space and having a brick and mortar when it's kind of the thing in the startup space that everyone's like, you should not do that. And we knew that we had to, because we weren't just a product line anymore. And so we rented a space where we had 2 treatment rooms, and we were able to use, the common area to display products. And so it was a challenge because we had to share that space with other entrepreneurs who had their own process and own flow of clients. And so it just didn't fit for us. And we had to make a decision as to, do we ride this wave into the end of our lease, or do we figure out something else to do? And so our alternative was actually to honor our lease, as we should have, but Winston Junction Market opened up in, I want to say, March of, I believe it was 2018. And so the benefit of that was that we were able to have a local presence for me to get to know people in the community, literally let them sample products, and every Saturday have a reserved spot where people could come back. And so Curtis was able to maintain, taking care of clients, and I was able to introduce people to OMG through another space that was affordable for us and, allowed us to get a little closer to the community. So that's the first pivot that comes to mind. And then the second pivot was when it was time for us to decide, are we going to renew this lease and stay in this space, or is it time for us to grow and get a little bigger? And we reached out to our landlord and said, okay, do you have anything that, won't make us go bankrupt from a leasing perspective? And the response was, well, actually the place that's right next door to where you are is available, and it hasn't been renovated in like 15 years. So you can pick your paint colors and give us feedback about what, you would want your carpets to be and things like that. And so it was a scary move for us, but the way that it really all fell into place, we upcycled, things from Habitat for Humanity and furniture from in the house, and created a space that really does feel like a really intentionally curated oasis for our clients. And so now under one building is only OMG. And you can come in and, like I said, enjoy products, services, or take a nap, because there's even space for that. So that was, a period where we had to kind of make some decisions about the business that weren't based on how big we had gotten, but more about how much we wanted to grow. And, that's always a little, unnerving as an entrepreneur, because you don't want to bite off more than you can chew.
What I would like to do is that I would like to show you your Hustle Heroes video from a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And I have a few questions to give you after that. Hold that for a second.
Mm-hmm. So I make aromatherapy and natural products ranging from candles to body butters and bath salts. This venture, it wasn't something that I necessarily decided on. I think it decided on me. The biggest changes between the person you saw in that video and who I am today is that I am much more confident in myself as a business person. I've been tested, so going through a program like Creative Startups, navigating pitches as a person of color who's not in a tech or a traditional tech space, those experiences definitely require you to fend for yourself and to take up space. And so having the background that I do, having worked in higher education, had so many experiences that have allowed me to help other people to start and grow their businesses. I came into entrepreneurship with a good amount of experience in that space, but I found myself kind of having to show my receipts, for lack of a better phrase, which is not necessarily something that I would normally do. But I think that the process of being challenged and required to do so reminded me that, no, you've got this. And while it may be hard to do that as a mom who's also a working professional, who also is a consultant, who's also a wife, and likes to take mommications where no one is invited but self, that it's doable. And that I'm much more also clear that as much as I know that entrepreneurship has chosen me and that this path is mine, I'm even more clear today that I don't have an option but to stay the course. And that, especially through the work that I've been doing in the last several years, I also recognize that I won't close the wealth gap for my family or help to close it within our community as an employee. I'll only do that as an entrepreneur. And if I wasn't clear on that before, I am extremely clear on that today. And so the biggest pivot has been that whereas when I first did that video, I was doing a lot of time pouring into other people's stuff and businesses, pouring into me and pouring into our businesses has been a major change and an improvement for me. even as of the end of this month, I will be transitioning from being a side hustle entrepreneur to a full-time entrepreneur. COVID, for many people, I know it's been a challenge, and it was a challenge for us because we had to close our doors. We've had to change our processes and everything else, and that has cost us in many ways, as well as our clients. But as a person of color who's also an entrepreneur and an advocate, I had to just take a step back and check my values and ask myself, what's more important to me at this time, to really focus on investing in our businesses and our family, or to invest my time and energy in growing other people's businesses and supporting other organizations in a full-time capacity. And I just decided that it was time, based on demand and just what my family needed, for me to, instead of rearranging the plates, to flip them, really to put them down and just say, let me just rethink this whole plate business and start anew. So I'm extremely excited and fortunate that during a time of uncertainty and transition that I can lean into our business. When we moved into our new space, our current space, I was preparing for our grand opening. It was, I think, just a minute past the start time, and a couple knocked at the door, and I welcomed them in. I didn't know them, and so I was just, prepared to give them the tour and the spiel. And this woman stands in front of me, and she says, "You don't know who I am, do you?" And I said, "No, ma'am, but, I'm Shayla, and welcome to Oh My Goodness." And her eyes start to well up, and I'm like, oh goodness, what is going on? And she, says, "You're my person." And, the long story short, she was, at that time, she had won her battle with cancer, but her skin had been extremely damaged because of the chemo and all the treatments that she had gone through. And a friend in town, actually the owner of Jewelry Unique, which is one of our local partners, because we have a couple of local retailers carrying our products now. Talina actually shared our body butter with this woman, and she came to the grand opening to tell me that it had changed her skin and helped her to kind of reclaim her life, because people don't think about the fact that just because you are a cancer survivor, it doesn't mean that your self-esteem and your sense of self isn't challenged by how it changes and hurts your body. So I say all that to say that the woman also is a pretty successful business owner who's become a financial advisor, a mentor, a connector, and someone that, whether it is needing help thinking about how I'm planning for the future for my family, or how I'm making sure that we're covered as a business. She's one example, Devorah Ascot Black, of someone who has shown up to be a champion for Oh My Goodness, but also a really important mentor to me as well. Long term, Oh My Goodness will be a fully functioning wellness center. So our desire is for you to be able to come and take your yoga class, get your acupuncture, have your massage service, and even visit the sauna if you want to. We really want to become a one-stop shop. And, and so that's something that's what I see our headquarters looking like long term. But we're also really open to the idea of figuring out if there are parts of our business that we want to scale in a different way. So for example, might we enter the arena to compete with a Massage Envy and to become the first Black-owned business entering that space, which might not necessarily completely mirror the wellness center model, but we recognize that our services and our products can kind of have their own scaling model or scaling options. So we're just really excited to explore that. That will also require that the production facility that I've built in my dining room gets outsourced. So I'm currently starting to explore co-packing and just, figuring out what it would look like for my recipes to be protected, but then made somewhere else so that we can get more made and be able to reach more people, so that, I guess the simple way of saying that is that long-term and growth looks like us finding ways to replicate ourselves without diminishing the the heart and the passion that comes along with it. Our exit strategy doesn't look like selling or being bought by L'Oreal or anything like that. I would love for us to grow to the point where we can, be a company that's acquiring other, businesses that fall into our brand and growing, and just kind of reevaluating as we go. I think that because of our network and our interests, there's a lot that we can do that centers or kind of builds around OMG. Knowing what I know now, I would have invested sooner in having support of like a bookkeeper or a CPA so that I could really know my numbers. That's something that is a continuous, and then I know that that's something that is always a learning curve, or that you're getting more and more into as you expand. But I think that there's so much stress that comes with the numbers, and that understanding and having support for understanding that sooner would have helped me to know and understand the value of our business sooner. Because, you watch Shark Tank and things like that, and you hear people's valuation of their businesses, and sometimes you're like, really though? But then you don't necessarily internalize that to, based on my market and based on my sales and based on these factors that actually do matter, my value is not just based on my cash flow. Which is oftentimes what you're asked for if you're, the things that you're asked for when you're preparing for a loan or a grant or something like that. And those are important numbers, but from a more holistic standpoint, that's just something that I wish that I had dug into sooner rather than later. The other thing that I would say that I would remind myself of is to, although I haven't strayed from focusing on our target audience, which is, African American women, although folks of all walks of life use our products and services. I think there was a time when, as I started to network more and engage and having to talk about the business, you become more susceptible to people's feedback and judgment. And sometimes their judgment is based on their own biases and their own disconnect with your audience. So if you know your audience, don't question that. Knowing your audience well means that you know what to create for your audience because you know what they want. And that means that you have less risk, because you know that you're creating what they're looking for versus not knowing your audience and you're creating something and then you produce it or you're presenting it, people are like, what am I supposed to do with this? I think I took for granted how well I knew my audience and how valuable and, how easy to monetize that was. And that's something that I would remind myself if I could go back, or anyone else who's entering. And then I think the last piece is to take your time and hurry up. And so people will have opinions about whether or not you're fully committed to your business because you are a side hustle entrepreneur. And, I've had to push back against a lot of that. No one can define what your big picture is. And so if, I've had to tell people that if having 2 businesses, 3 kids, and a full-time job and a husband and managing all those things isn't a demonstration of commitment and what I can do, then we're not viable business partners. This isn't the type of relationship that's going to be conducive or productive for me, because the relationships that are going to be ones that see value and potential in the, wow, if you're able to do all of that, I can only imagine what you'll do when you decide that you're shifting from being a side hustle entrepreneur, if you decide to do that, into a full-time one. And so I would say, value and align yourself with folks who are able to see and value your business and who you are, versus people who see the beginning of you as, the line where you tell them the name of your business, because you were doing so much before and you'll be doing so much during and after. Make sure that you build relationships with people who can see that, because the energy that you'll put into trying to train and educate them could actually go into you building your business. So once again, I'm Shayla Herndon-Edmunds. I'm the founder and chief creative officer of Oh My Goodness Wellness Bar. You can learn more about us at www.omgwellnessbar.com. Thank you very much to Hustle for being one of the first organizations, actually, yes, one of the first, not only local, but organizations, period, to recognize us and to acknowledge the work that I've been doing to build Oh My Goodness and the growth that we've had. It means a lot to me that you all are carrying the torch and continuing to salute and support organizations and businesses like mine. So thank you for having me.